Welcome back once again, Star Seekers, to another deals video for this second week in October, where I bring you 5 games all under £1 euro and attempt to answer that all important question: are they worth a quid? Well, this week was looking a little thin on the all region deal front, but there were 5 games which caught my eye, so let's dive right into them and see whether or not there's something here to tickle your fancy. As always, I like to quickly cover off those games to avoid. Once again, OMG Police Car TV Simulator is on sale, which is a slow grind fest with some terrible police chase gameplay. Diabolic is still discounted, as is the horrendous Super Loop Drive. And finally, Go Fish Go is still up for grabs, though I'd rather grab a dog turd and squeeze. You'll find my reviews on all of these terrible games in the description box below, so if you want a bit of a laugh, give them a watch after this video. For now though, let's get into the deals. So first up, we have a game that caught my eye for all the wrong reasons. The majority of the graphics in Superola look like they were drawn in Microsoft Paint, and while this is no doubt purposefully done, it doesn't do the game any favours when it comes to judging a book by its cover, or in this case a game by its graphics. Getting into the game then, and what we have here is essentially an endless runner. But while the game does indeed feature an endless mode, there's also a story mode, which sees you travelling across a Super Mario World type map completing levels. General gameplay involves you running across these pre-made levels in order to reach the end platform, but a bunch of enemies bar your way in each level and you have to jump from platform to platform, collecting burgers which act as your ammo supply. Said burgers then allow you to fire a mouth laser which destroys enemies and obstacles in your way. Now the game features a bunch of different references to retro games and memes, including Sonic, Mario, Street Fighter, Indiana Jones, and of course Zero Wing. In addition to a ton of runner levels featuring different themes, you also have Flappy Bird style swimming or flying levels, Street Fighter style bonus levels where you have to hit buttons to destroy objects, and rock paper scissors style boss battles. So far as endless runners go, Superola isn't too bad, and though its mechanics are about as simple as they come, I did like the game's humour and seeing how many references I could spot as I played. As for whether I think it's worth a quid, I'm gonna have to say no for this one unless you don't really care about gameplay and want to buy it just for the memes. The sale date on Superola ends on the 18th of October in the UK and EU, and actually today in the US, as I kinda screwed up and read the date wrong, but honestly, you're not missing out on an awful lot. This week's second game is one which on the surface I thought was just another endless runner, but actually I was wrong and it turns out to be nothing of the sort. Future Grind is a stunt racer where you ride atop a futuristic looking bike and have to grind your way through levels across neon coloured rails. The catch here though is that the wheels that you use must match the colour of the rail that you're grinding on, or else you'll simply explode and have to start the track over again. Now you're able to rotate your bike to ensure you're using the right wheels, and this also opens up the possibility of tricks and combos as you hop between rails performing spins and flips. Another neat thing about Future Grind is that you don't have to grind on top of rails, and instead can perform a number of different grinds including under grinds and hanging grinds. As you work your way through the game's story, you'll be tasked with different objectives in each level, such as performing different tricks and combos or only grinding on certain rails. The game is pretty challenging, but also pretty damn addictive once you get the hang of its controls. But if you're finding things too tough, there's also an assist mode which slows down time, or changes the colour of your wheels so that you can grind on any rail. Now so far as content goes, there are a number of different bikes that you can unlock, each presenting their own challenge, and there's a ton of different stages to work your way through which become progressively harder. All the while you'll be grinding away to a pretty awesome electronica soundtrack. While it doesn't sound like it would be a very fun game, I was actually pretty impressed by how much of a unique game Future Grind is, and I'd definitely recommend picking it up and giving it a go for a quid. The sale date for the game ends on the 22nd of October in all regions. Our next deal is in fact 2 deals, as I bring you 2 games from the cult indie game developer Walter Machado, who's well known for making fast-paced arcade style games. First up we have Umash Santicide, a game I recently reviewed and in my opinion the most accessible of the 3 Ubermosh titles currently on sale on the Nintendo Switch. Ubermosh sees you playing as the Blade Saint, a legendary warrior, and your singular purpose is to slaughter endless waves of enemies as you try and survive for 90 seconds in the arena known as the Ubermosh. Now the game's essentially a twin-stick shooter brawler with arcade high-score chasing gameplay, and it's pretty hardcore. You'll die a lot due to how fast combat is in the game, and will often see yourself surviving for about 10 seconds until you get used to things. You're armed with a sword which can be used to both kill enemies and deflect the projectiles, as well as being able to grab a number of different ranged weapons from dead enemies. Now there are a bunch of different character mods which add variety to gameplay by switching out the different abilities that automatically activate as you play or kill enemies. If you're up for a challenge and enjoy high score chasers, I recommend picking up Ubermosh Santicide and giving it a go. When it comes to the second title, we have TTV2, a game with an incredibly simple premise which sees you moving between screens featuring silhouettes of spiked walls and rotating objects. Your goal is to reach one of the screen's edges whilst avoiding contact with these silhouettes. Successfully doing this then takes you onto the next screen where you repeat the process, surviving as many screens as possible. Sounds easy, but once again it's pretty nails and requires fast reaction speed and precise controlling from the player. While that pretty much covers the whole of the game's mechanics, I will say that TTV2 has that one more try addictiveness, especially when you become more familiar with its screens and can actually survive for more than a couple of them. TTV2 and Ubermosh Santicide are also set to a thrash metal electronica soundtrack which, much like the games, given enough time, grows on you. Both games are permanently priced under a quid and well worth it in my opinion, though Ubermosh is currently on sale for only 49 cents in the US, which is even more of a reason to give it a go. Our penultimate game this week is called Woodle Adventures, a third-person platformer with some cutesy visuals, which were actually what drew me to the game in the first place. Woodsy sees you playing as a log with a face who wields a leaf as a weapon, and the objective of the game is to collect 3 teardrops in each level. The game's storyline explains that the fairy tears, and you have to collect them in order to bring water back to the thirsty world. Now, gameplay isn't terrible. Each level is accessed from a hub world which also features a number of different unlockable items, each of which are obtained by collecting a specific number of berries found scattered about stages. Each level has a different layout featuring a bunch of different enemies that you can either avoid or swipe out with your leaf to kill them. And there are a number of different platforming mechanics including moving platforms, lifts and water chutes which launch you upwards. I thought the variety in the levels was pretty good. The layouts are often quite challenging and the game's visuals are by far its strongest aspect. But here's where the good ends and the bad begins. The controls in the game aren't great. Whilst platforming isn't usually a huge issue, your character often slides off platforms and you need to be right on top of enemies to kill them with your leaf. But it's the camera which really ruins Woodle Adventures. To begin with, it's locked in place and only allows you to zoom in and out, which often causes issues when trying to judge distances between platforms, and it then often rotates itself when you reach certain points in a level or switches to a really odd fixed camera which follows you. The camera often bugs out, totally obscuring your view, and once after I died it got stuck in a rotated position. The game's music is also just a cacophony of noise, which most of the time just sounds like someone going apeshit on a Casio keyboard. In all, I can't really recommend Woodle Adventures, mainly due to its awful camera, and so I'm giving this one a thumbs down. The game's sale price ends on the 16th of October in the US and the 30th of October in the UK and EU. Our final game this week is Zeodrifter, a Metroidvania style action platformer with some retro looking 8-bit visuals. The game sees you playing as an astronaut whose ship is damaged by an asteroid. Following the collision, he must visit 4 planets in order to obtain the parts required to repair it. Now gameplay sees you moving between these planets, working your way through the maps, whilst collecting pickups which grant you new abilities, modify your projectile patterns or increase your health pool. As with all good Metroidvanias, new abilities enable you to access previously inaccessible areas, and these include things like a submarine allowing you to go underwater, and a rather unique plane shift ability which allows you to transition between the foreground and background, which I thought was a pretty neat idea. Now Zeodrifters isn't the best Metroidvania that I've played, which is mainly down to 2 main reasons. Firstly, the bosses in the game are all the same. You fight this bug-like creature in every fight, and though its movesets do change in each encounter, a lot of the moves are reused and the battles can become quite repetitive. The second reason is due to there being 4 separate worlds and no clear direction on which world you need to proceed to next. I found this to be frustrating, especially in the early game prior to gaining your first few abilities, and I must have spent a good 30 minutes just trying to work out which world I was supposed to head to. In general though, Zeodrifter is still a decent Metroidvania game. It's quite challenging, has some decent pixel visuals which are very reminiscent of the original Metroid games, and I'd say it's well worth a play for a quid. Zeodrifter's sale date ends on the 21st of October in the US and the 31st of October in the UK and EU. And that just about wraps up this week's deals, so let me know your thoughts in the comment section below on the games featured and whether or not you're going to be picking any of them up. As always, I ask that you hit that like button if this video helped you out, and subscribe to the channel for future deals videos, as well as regular reviews and content of Nintendo Switch games. With that said, I want to thank you all once again for watching, and until next time, take care and game on.